Well, hey, good morning. It's a beautiful fall morning in November. I'm down in the Ozarks. Just beautiful down here. Um, and while I was here, I definitely planned on working and taking some time to film. And there's a particular verse that I got stuck on in Ezekiel that I just kind of really had to think through. Because as I went through the prophecy of Ezekiel and it was talking about Israel, there's this verse that pops up. Because I was talking about this as if it was it's a dual prophetic thing. It definitely applies to today because back in 4, it gives the exact timeline to when Israel will become a nation again in 1948. Gives it to the day. And then immediately following that, it goes into then the prophecy on Israel. Now, many would argue this has already happened. And to some degree it has, and to some degree it definitely will happen again because of what Jesus had to say about what's going to happen to Israel in the end. But I'm going to kind of go between those two because here's the verse that got me stuck. And it's Ezekiel 5, verse 9. And I will do among you what I have never done, and the like of which I will never do again because of all your abominations. Now, this is the part that got me stuck, because if this happened before, then clearly this is not going to happen again, anything that I read beyond this. So that's where I stopped. Now, but then just something kind of kept bothering me in that I've almost heard somebody say that before, and that's what Jesus said. So I'm going to go back again, Ezekiel 5, verse 9, and I will do among you, Israel is what he's talking about, what I have never done, and the like of which I will never do again because of all your abominations. Now, if we go to Matthew 24, what's taking place here is the disciples are asking Jesus about the end times. They're saying, when will we know that you are going to be here? You're coming back. When will we know when that time is? And he goes into a lot of details on what things will look like, specifically for Israel and Jerusalem. And all of it, he essentially says that you need to, when you see these abominations taking place, and uses the same language, therefore when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place, whoever reads, let him understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let him who is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. And let him who is in the field not go back to get his clothes. But woe to those who are pregnant and to those with nursing babies in those days. And pray that your flight may not be in winter or on the Sabbaths. This sounds pretty terrible. Now here's what we get into, and this is what got me stuck. For then there will be great tribulation, such has not been since the beginning of the world until this time, no, nor ever shall be. So here what we have is we have Jesus essentially saying the same thing about his second coming, that you've never, you, Israel, Jerusalem, Judea, what's about to happen to you right before my second coming? There will never be anything worse before that or after that. Now, the other part of this that really kind of got me was if we go back to Ezekiel, it says in 9 again, and I will do among you what I have never done, and the like of which will never do again because of all your abominations. Just like that's just what Jesus said. Then it said, therefore fathers shall eat their sons in your midst, and sons shall eat their fathers, and I will execute judgments among you, and all of you who remain will scatter to all the winds. So here what you have is you have, to some degree, dual prophetic until you get to this part where it says, what I'm about to do, I've never done before, and I will never do again. So clearly it's the worst thing. And Jesus is saying this is what's going to happen and you better flee. And here it's saying this is what's going to happen and I'm going to scatter you to the winds. But it's this part where he says that fathers shall eat their sons in your midst. Now, that's pretty messed up, because that means massive starvation, brutal lawlessness, unlike anything since the days of Noah. Because in the days of Noah, people ate each other. And that was the reality of the situation. According to Enoch, he goes into great detail on how they ate each other. Because they would essentially enslave each other and make each other work for each other. And then whenever they couldn't provide, they would then eat that person. And ultimately, the end times is going to look like the days of Noah. So I think there's something that we have to kind of at least let the Spirit guide this one. I guess I'm not necessarily at a conclusion to say that this is dual prophetic, because it specifically says what I'm about to do, I will never do again. And I'm leaning more towards, because I do believe the words of Jesus Christ in Matthew 24, where it says, for then there will be great tribulation, and he's specifically talking to Israel, for then there will be great tribulation, such has not been since the beginning of the world until this time, no, nor ever shall be. So we have to understand that, one thing I can say for sure is what is going to happen in Israel and Jerusalem. And I'm not necessarily saying that this war is going to then lead to that thing. But when people bring up the question, well, there has to be 3.5 years of peace in Israel, I'll bring up two truths. One, seems like we just had 3.5 years of peace in Israel. Two, that prophecy in Daniel also already happened, and it could be dual prophetic, but that's what the Romans did to them. Like that, there was 3.5 years of peace, and then they destroyed them, tore down their temple, and that led to the wars of the Maccabees. And but nobody ate anybody during those times. This is, at least there's no recordings of people going back to the days of Noah anywhere at all in Israel. So I think we have to kind of really wake up to, well, what's this going to look like? It's not going to be pretty for sure. For sure. So, I don't know. It's definitely something that I think I'm going to kind of continue to ponder on. Because what Jesus said is what's about to happen to Israel right before his second coming has never happened before. There'd never been tribulation like that before. For then there will be great tribulation, such as not been since the beginning of the world until this time, no, nor ever shall be. And Ezekiel says, and I will do among you what I have never done, and the like of which will never do again because of all your abominations. And Jesus says, therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place, whoever reads, let him understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. So I think we need to kind of, I do know this, the Bible speaks and lives on its own accord. And if somebody said, well, this is what this prophecy means, and it already happened, and maybe, but maybe not. We need to stop sitting there and go, well, because this guy said so, it must be true. We need to see, well, what does the Bible actually say? And I believe that what is going to happen to Israel, maybe not anytime in the near future, but for sure, right before Christ's return, is going to be very, very, very bad, unlike anything they have ever seen before, or ever shall again, according to the words of Jesus Christ. And I believe, according to the words of Ezekiel, because again, I'm just going to start with, or finish with what I started with, which was, this is coming immediately following God's exact timeline to his second coming. Just like what Jesus even said in Matthew 24. Now learn the parable from the fig tree. When its branches has already come tender and puts forth leaves, you know that summer is near. So you also, when you see all these things, know that it is near, at its very door. Surely I say to you, this generation will by no means pass away till all things are fulfilled. And what he's talking about is Israel becoming a nation again. So literally, Ezekiel and Jesus are talking about the same, or God is talking to Ezekiel about the same thing that Jesus is talking about, I believe. It makes more sense because otherwise one of these is not true. You can only have the worst ever or ever will be once. And this seems like at least two. So any thoughts or insight, definitely put that below. Again, I just kind of put a little, I do this spiritually. I like to put kind of a question mark on things, and that's okay. That is okay. And I guess I'm going to kind of leave a little question mark on that one. I'd like to dig deeper. I'm definitely going to kind of continue to dig through this prophecy of Ezekiel and try to align it with the things Jesus said, or really any other prophet said about the end times. So, and of course, Ezekiel does obviously get into the end times as well in great detail. So, I guess, any thoughts or insight, definitely put that below. The most important part of this channel, we take prayer requests, so definitely never hesitate to send that in. Thank you for watching this episode of God, Family, and Guns, and as always, love God, love your family, and love guns.